Private Detective Strike is visiting his family in Cornwall when he's approached by a woman asking for help finding her mother, Margaret Bamboro, who went missing in mysterious circumstances in 1974. Yada 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 yada. As Strike and Robin investigate Margaret's disappearance, they come up against a fiendishly complex case with leads that include tarot cards, a psychopathic serial killer, and witnesses who cannot all be trusted. And they learn that even in cases decades old can prove to be deadly. Well, that doesn't seem at all transphobic. I mean, surely. With all the things she's said on Twitter, her continual promotion of false theories and false science, how she has taken so much offense to people asking her to stop, she gave back a human rights award. Surely there will be nothing transphobic in the novel. And these are all just clickbait taglines. Well, let's see what the cards say. Is Rowling transphobic? The Tower reversed. Well, might not be up to the best start. A powerful force has shaken the very foundation. A woman falls, surprised by the events. Well, so Rowling at least does not believe it is transphobic, though she's not willing to see the truth of the matter. Whatever truth she holds are a lie. Next, we have the Seven of Swords. Confrontations must be made. Hiding and dishonesty will not bring us a conclusion. Let's do one more. Judgment. The past is back, and it is here to be reckoned with. Knowledge and understanding can rid you of what plagues you. One must remember the past to overcome the future. Ha! The cards have given me the answer. I now know what we must do. Let's talk about the dangers of using tropes to label minority groups as predators. Well, I'm back with an impromptu hot take I was really not planning. See, I'm a great lover of fiction. I have many books, if you hadn't noticed already. Not all of them are on this shelf. In fact, I might have a degree in this subject, only goddesses do not need degrees. While continuing to work on my 3 or 4-part series on JK Rowling, the author continues to make sure she is relevant through harmful views and what we will call temper tantrums. But no one understands that she's only thinking about the children. Recently, her book under her male pen name, Robert Galbraith, Troubled Blood, hit the shelves, and well, it stirred up some controversy. It got the hashtag Rest in Peace JK Rowling trending on Twitter, who did clarify that she was indeed not dead. So her army, of course, has been out in the masses screenshotting anything that shows the trans community and their allies as unstable, which interestingly enough was a thing she did in her second book in this detective series, The Silkworm, where a trans woman and murder suspect named Pipa was described as being unstable and aggressive after her lead male protagonist threatened her with prison rape. I will acknowledge I did not read the book. And when the one review came out that was behind a paywall and things began to blow up before the book was even on the shelf, I was a bit skeptical. It would not be the first time that outrage before a book or film or TV show came out and it amounted to absolutely nothing. Once something gets trending, people sometimes react without looking at things critically or seeing the entire picture. That said, it has been a week or so since the book came out. I've read several reviews, including those who I am guessing are defending Rowling against being canceled, particularly a book reviewer at The Guardian. And now I have been joined by my cat. Please don't knock anything over and be annoying like Obsidian. Particularly a book reviewer at The Guardian, Alison, who has titled her review JK Rowling's Troubled Blood. Don't judge a book by a single review. And you know, I can agree with this statement. In the age of clickbait, it's best to wait sometimes before tweeting. However, Flood is missing a few important points. Do I think Miss Flood's views are transphobic? No. I'm always willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. That was a thing I did for Rowling, and well, she's not doing very much to change my mind that she's transphobic. So, to summarize Flood's essay, she is saying that the book is tone deaf, but not transphobic. To quote, "Creed is just one of many suspects, and without giving too much away, he is not the main villain, nor is he portrayed as trans or even called a transvestite by Rowling." So there you have it. That one review, which was clearly made clickbait, like I said before, is why it's behind a paywall, is wrong. I don't think she even considered why the term transvestite was used in the review, though. Disappointing, yes, because she is a book reporter. Not surprising, though, considering how trans individuals are covered by the fictional media, movies, television, etc. The Netflix documentary Disclosure explains it best, so go check that one out since it's going to do a hell of a lot better than me, a cis woman titan goddess who doesn't live the trans experience. Now, Flood goes on to explain who Creed really is, which is, shocking, a serial killer, but not the serial killer the main character is looking for. This seems like a good point to hit the pause button and put up a content warning sign. Warning, transphobia, child abuse, racism, violence, and of course, rape. Flood says,
Instead, he is a man who had camouflaged himself behind an apparently fey and gentle facade. Having been abused as a child, Creed begins watching women undressing in secret at the age of 12, stealing women's underwear and wearing it while masturbating. On one work night, he puts on the coat of a female colleague and sings a song. He has a convivial, sexually ambiguous persona that worked well with the drunk and lonely. When a stash of jewelry is found hidden below his floorboards, he said he bought it because he liked to cross-dress. In reality, this was a lie to cover that these were trophies taken from his victims.
all of those quotes within this quote is what I'm taking to be pulled directly from the text. Since she has read it, I am going to take this article to be a rather credible source, especially since she is, in essence, sort of defending the book. And, you know, my conclusion is, let's read the cards. Just kidding. And my conclusion is, wow, do we still have to explain problematic and downright hurtful tropes to a book editor? Oh, and yes, Rowling is showing again, through her fiction, just how she sees trans people. So today, I'm going to reference Rowling's previous writings, but only minimally. But I'm going to mainly be focusing on this book and this review along with a few others. I will discuss why it is transphobic and how the book cements Rowling as being transphobic, if you weren't convinced already. So let's discuss. Part 1, tropes. So, tropes is just fancy language for literary and movie critics to say stereotype, a simplification of a character. It's a good place to start when developing a character. Still, it can be harmful. What makes something a trope is for it to be repeated, such as the ditzy blonde. What makes a trope harmful is it filtering into the real world as a stereotype. For example, all blondes are ditzy. A trope is basically a good place to start whenever it comes to character building. Take the film Legally Blonde, which takes the ditzy blonde trope and creates a full character arc, with the main character growing and proving that she's more than just a dumb blonde. Tropes stick with us on sort of an unconscious level. They frame a lot of our thinking when it comes to people, and they can create a bias we may be unaware of. What do we know about Rowling's character, Dennis Creed, and what trope does he fall under? Flood has told us serial killer, but not the murderer. He's a genius, especially with misdirection, which is why he wears a wig sometimes. Abused as a child, since I guess everyone knows childhood abuse is sure to turn you into a serial killer. He masturbates in women's underwear, so obviously a sexual deviant. He spies on women, so killer who is also a voyeur, and he cross-dresses because that's evil. Cross-dressing is a sure sign of being a fictional serial killer. The trope that he falls under is the creepy serial killer crossdresser. You may remember this trope from the films Psycho, Dressed to Kill, and Silence of the Lambs. The last one did at least try to point out that the killer is not trans. The trope also appears in films like Batman: The Dark Knight, Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, some film called Hunting Humans, and I believe a couple James Bond films as well. Most people have seen or at least know about the first 3 films I mentioned. So when an author is invoking a trope, it's sort of an easy way for the reader to picture this thing without having to go through pages and pages of exposition like some people do, Stephen King, explaining said thing. This is a good thing, considering this novel is 900 pages long. Now, the word transvestite is never used, so was that newspaper or whatever you call it correct in their assessment? You might want to consider why people's minds likely go to that assumption whenever there's a cross-dressing killer.
How'd you do,
I mean,
don't judge a book by its cover.
Because Rocky Horror Picture Show has an entire song for it.
I'm just a sweet transvestite.
I'm not saying that you can't love these films. Tropes get locked into your mind and a person will end up relating an entire group of people to this one trope. I love Hades from Disney's Hercules, but I'm also aware he is full of queer coding, along with so many other Disney villains, which, brings me to the next part. Part 2, when tropes are harmful. So TERFs and trans exclusionary policymakers use the language of horror films to push the narrative of women-only spaces. Rowling even states in her 3,700-word essay that she's afraid of the doors being thrown open to bathrooms and changing rooms to any man who might feel like he's a woman. Let me repeat. People are using a fictional narrative to justify trans exclusionary policy. And if you're sitting there thinking, there's no way that fiction can do such a thing, let's rewind time and talk about the brute caricature. This is where the racism comes in. After the Civil War, during the Reconstruction period, a bunch of white writers started to argue and show in their fiction the brutish, animalistic free slave that was just going to resort to his animalistic nature and rape the pure and innocent white women. According to Dr. Pilgrim from the Jim Crow Museum of Racist Memorabilia, at the beginning of the 20th century, much of the virulent anti-Black propaganda that found its way into scientific journals, local newspapers, and best-selling novels focused on the stereotype of the Black rapist. The claim that Black brutes were in epidemic numbers raping white women became the public rationalization for lynching of Blacks. Such fictional works include Thomas Nelson Page's Red Rock and Thomas Dixon's The Leopard Spot, which influenced the making of the Birth of a Nation film, which glorifies the KKK. And the trope is still around today. Black men are often portrayed as being brutish, if not portrayed as being lazy. Another caricature that appeared during slavery to justify the horrific crimes done to Black people. This stereotype /trope /caricature is so ingrained in people's minds that a police officer can shoot a man in the back 7 times with kids in the back of the guy's car, but a white kid can shoot and kill 2 protesters and just walk down the street with his arms up, holding his damn gun, with police all over the place just driving by. Fiction can influence us. Even escapist fiction like detective novels written by a woman who decided to pick up a male pseudonym because, well, Harry Potter is a lot to live up to. Harmful tropes of slaves being happy to be slaves appears in Harry Potter. The house elves who can't possibly survive without being slaves are really, really happy, I guess, being, it's so problematic. And you can like things like this, while also recognizing there are issues with it. Don't feel guilty for liking a thing just because there's something in it you disagree with. I'm currently reading the Dresden Files, and are there things in there that I find problematic? Yes. And I still really, really enjoy the books. So Troubled Blood is using the language that transphobes and TERFs use. Again, I'm going to be pulling from Flood's article. To a drunk victim gave a hazy form of feminine appearance, just long enough for his large hands to close over a gasping mouth. Look at my hands. They can do this. What does this make me? So in the anti-trans sphere of the world, hands and having a hazy feminine appearance is language often used to clock a trans woman. I mean, the people that Rowling mentions in her Turf Wars essays are people who are using this sort of dehumanizing language to describe trans individuals, particularly trans women, since they don't believe that trans men exist. Laura Bradley from the Daily Beast also reviewed the novel and had this to say. Corman Strike says at one point that Creed's victim had been hoodwinked by a careful performance of femininity. But most harmful are the passages that mock Creed using the language of transphobe. There's a fixation at times on Creed's ability to pass, including an entire retrospective on a doctor's office debating whether an unregistered patient was a lady or a man in a dress. The book frames Creed's interest in women's clothing as the result of abuse he suffered as a child, and casts him as a voyeur who uses the cloak of womanhood for his own twisted purposes. Again, pernicious anti-trans tropes. Fear is a powerful tool used to justify hate using tropes and stereotypes. Part 3. But does the book really show that Rowling is transphobic? Now we understand the tropes. I've even gone over the way tropes can sink into our unconscious and shape policies. That being said, can we still look at this book with this trope and give Rowling another middle-aged writer moment, maybe? No. H.P. Lovecraft is dead. We can like his stuff, but he was a racist, super racist. And that popped up in his writings again and again. Rowling, she's been a smart enough woman to leave evidence out of her articles and simply to say, thousands agree with me. I know this is loosely based off of a real-life serial killer, and so is Buffalo Bill. And the author of that novel, while using different language than we use today, did try to say that Buffalo Bill is not trans. If it was just this on its own, maybe. However, she's gone as far as to return a Human Rights Award that she received when they condemned her views. I understand Hagrid decided to say he agrees with her, but she's been given a lot of time to think about her beliefs, and a lot of people have been willing to talk to her, and she's not changing her mind. Writing fictional characters and narratives can reveal a lot about a person's own beliefs, a person's own personal beliefs. That doesn't mean you can't have diversity in novels, and that people outside of a marginalized group can't write about said marginalized group. You just gotta do it respectfully, not like the hell. Let's not send death threats towards her, okay? It's okay to walk away from Twitter, read something else. I mean, hell, I'm in the middle of editing a video on Tropes, finishing up some research for another thing, and well, you know what? I might take a break before returning to the other scripts just because I'm tired of having to look up Rowling every time I sit down at the computer. Fiction can teach empathy. The reason so many people are hurting is because they took solace in the Harry Potter books. The darker side is that fiction can also teach hate if we aren't careful. With that said, here are some fictional novels and authors who do have some great LGBTQ+ representation in them. One of my favorites are these ones right here, which are N.K. Jemish's The Broken Earth trilogy. I really, really love her books a lot. There is The Future of Another Timeline by Annalee Nowitz, The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. I hope I said that correctly. The Salt Roads by Noah Hopkinson. Rick Riordan and Neil Gaiman also feature many characters from the entire rainbow spectrum. And if you're really into the detective novels, and I will admit I have not read this one, check out A Kind of Justice by Renee James. Books, they, open the doors to new worlds, new people you've never known, maybe never seen. Once Upon a Time is code for I'm lying to you. We experience stories as lies and truth at the same time. We learn to empathize with real people via made-up people. The most important thing that fiction does is it lets us look out through others' eyes and teaches us empathy, that behind every pair of eyes is somebody like us. Neil Gaiman. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, share, let me know down in the comments some of your favorite fictional books that also feature LGBTQ+ characters or other minority characters. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope to see you again soon. Bye.
You gonna talk to me?